So, what is a search warrant?
Search warrant is basically a document that a court provides. The police will or DA's office will go to the judge and ask for basically permission to search. So they have to put in what's called a warrant application. They would have to outline probable cause that either a crime has been committed and that there's evidence of that crime at the place that they want to search, or basically list a basis for why they want a search warrant. A judge will review the search warrant application, and then if they feel that it's proper, issue a search warrant to allow law enforcement to go to this location and search for what it is they're looking for.
Does a warrant specify the scope of a search?
Yes, absolutely. So within the search warrant application, law enforcement is going to have to say, we want to search this building, this house, give an exact address of where this is, describe it, give a description, and say, we want to search the 2-story building on Main Street at 99 Main Street, or whatever the address is. They have to be specific in a time frame that they want to do this and the location of what they want to search, whether that's a building, a car, both, that type of thing.
How can I tell if a warrant is legitimate?
You probably can't at a first glance if you're not trained. So law enforcement will say we have a warrant. They may flash the warrant. They're not necessarily going to give you a copy of it, but if they do, it would be really hard to tell if you're not working in this business to know what makes a warrant legitimate. But I guess to answer the question, one, it has to be signed by a proper judge with the proper authority and jurisdiction to have signed it. But to tell if it's legitimate, you'd also have to look at the warrant application. So you can't have a legitimate warrant without a legitimate application. So when we review search warrants, we're going to be looking at the warrant itself and the application and looking for issues with basically all of the allegations. So the police are going to have to put in there what their basis is. And it's usually, we did surveillance and it said, and we determined this, and we talked to a confidential informant and they told us whatever it is. We would be looking for issues with their application, whether it's a technical issue, they left something out. Basically, there's a number of rules about how these applications have to be done, and we'd be looking at both the application and the search warrant itself.
When are the police required to have a search warrant?
The police are required to basically have a basis to search. So one way that they can do that is with a search warrant. Other ways that they can do that are with somebody's consent, for example. So if the police show up and they say, hey, do you mind if we take a look around? And a homeowner, for example, says, yeah, come on in, look around, take your time. They wouldn't need a search warrant in that circumstance. If the homeowner says, no, you may not look around, they need another way to get in the house or wherever they want to search. So then at that point, they'd be required to go get a search warrant to form a basis to be able to search.
What are some exceptions?
There are some different exceptions in New York. So one of the exceptions is like an emergency exception. So I guess you could think of a hypothetical where the police want to search for a gun and they just saw somebody run in the house with a gun. Well, I guess public policy or the law says that rather than waiting a few hours for them to go and get a search warrant from a judge, the better course of action would be if they just saw somebody run in the house with a gun, they can go in the house and try to either get the perpetrator or look for that gun. Time it makes it so that they don't need. So it's referred to as exigent circumstances as well. Basically, there has to be an emergency, a possibility of destruction of evidence, or some big reason why they can't wait.
What is the exclusionary rule?
So the exclusionary rule to me basically means that if the police don't have a proper search, either there's a problem with their search warrant application, with the search warrant itself, or they're searching illegally, or it's deemed that they've searched illegally, the evidence that they find is not usable. It's precluded, it's thrown out, so it protects against illegal searches and seizures.
Do I have to answer the questions when the police are doing a search?
You do not have to answer questions when the police are doing a search. You actually never have to answer the police's questions anytime. So whether police want to talk to you during a search or the police want to talk to you during a stop or any interaction, you always have the right to remain silent. You can invoke that right at any time.
Are the police allowed to search everywhere in my house?
It really depends where they can search. It comes down to what is outlined in the search warrant. So they are going to have to list specifically the types of things that they are looking for. Well, different items that the police are looking for are different in size. So, for example, somebody could be looking for a flash drive or somebody could be looking for a body. If the police are looking for a body, for example, the only places they can look are where a body would fit. So you wouldn't be allowed to look in a shoebox if you're looking for a body, because clearly a body wouldn't fit in a shoebox. Similarly, if you're looking for a flash drive is so small that you could pretty much look anywhere in a drawer, in a shoebox, inside of a sneaker. So it's really kind of specific to the application and the search warrant, but also about size.
Am I allowed to watch where they search?
I guess the answer to that question is it depends. It depends if they give you permission to. I believe if they said, we're going to be searching, you're under a brief, detainer, please, stand off to the side so that we can come in and do what we need to do. They probably will be able to restrict your movement. But if they let you walk about, then you can. But if they try to restrict your movement while they're doing that, they can get away with that.
Can I call my attorney while the police are searching?
You can definitely try. So I guess the question would be whether you're in custody or a detainer or not. There are searches where they don't handcuff you and put you in their vehicle. So if you're free to move about, say, outside of a house and you still have your phone, of course you can call. If they've detained you while they're doing their search, you may not be able to make a call, and it may be difficult temporarily to call, but if you can, you definitely should, but it depends on the case and circumstances.
What happens if they find potential evidence for a crime separate for what they're looking for?
If the evidence that we're referring to is illegal contraband, they'll probably take it. They'll use what's called a plain view exception. So if I'm looking for drugs under the search warrant, but I locate a handgun, the police are going to be able to, based on plain view, grab the handgun. The other thing that the police can do is if while they're executing their search warrant, they're finding other evidence that there may be other things that they would now want to look for, they can do a second search warrant or amend their search warrant. They would go back to the judge and say they would list new factual allegations that while executing a search warrant, we saw what we saw, or this is what we're observing. Because of that, we're asking you to expand the level of the search warrant to allow us to go further. And they would wait for that permission. If they're doing it correctly, they'd wait for that permission and then search more places or expand the scope of the search.